All right, so let me go ahead and swap this over to the left. And essentially what they want you to do is to treat this like a React app. Now, you don't understand what that means yet, and that's fine. But it essentially means to have, like, rather than having like questions be a variable, score, current question, we put all that in a store, okay?
Mhm.
So we create this store. Let me zoom in a little bit because this is on my bigger monitor. Okay, so we have the store, and it's just going to be a JavaScript object with all of this information. So we'll have questions. That'll be an array. Each question will have, you know, a title. Okay, some answers. And then the correct. Okay, so it's just like before, perfectly fine. We can add on to that if we need to. You'll have your score in here and the current question. Okay, with me so far?
Yeah.
Now the idea here is that rather than having like previously the way that we built it was we would have these functions and then we'd have like our event listener function and that would like call out to all these other functions. Instead what they want is they want you to have a render function that's going to essentially make these decisions on what to render. Okay, so we're going to have a section with the ID of start, and that's just going to say something like, you know, welcome to my Pokemon quiz. Okay. And then that's going to have a button with the ID of start that just says start. Cool. And then we're going to have a section with the ID of quiz. Okay. And that's going to have an H1. That's not going to have anything in there yet. And let me think about this. And then a div in here, or let's actually make it a form with the ID of choices. And just thinking here, sorry. No, we'll have the form by itself. And then what we'll have is a field set with the ID of choices. Perfect. And then a input type of submit, value of submit answer, and an ARIA label of submit answer, like so. Okay. And that'll close off that section. Then we have a section called feedback. That'll have an H1 that we'll fill out later, and then a paragraph that we'll fill out later, and a button with the ID of next that will say next question. Then we have a section with the ID of results that will have an H1 summary, and a paragraph where we'll say you scored X out of Y, correct, and a button with the ID of reset that's a restart quiz. And I think I'll call this restart and reset. Okay, so by default, all of these sections are going to be display none. Okay, so nothing shows up. And then we are going to have, right off the bat, we call render. Okay, when the page loads. Now let me go ahead and load jQuery in here. Making sense so far?
Yeah, pretty straightforward.
Okay, cool. Okay, great. So now render is going to actually have some logic in there where it's going to try to figure out what exactly am I rendering. And so we can essentially say, we'll also have a started is false. Okay, So now render can make all these decisions as far as what to show. So for instance, if store.started is false, right, then we should go ahead and show the start div or start section. Okay. Now, else if that store has started, so we won't get to this else if, right, unless they have already started or clicked the start button. Now we just need to know, is current question less than, is store.current question less than store.questions.length? If so, then we're going to go ahead and, well, we're not going to show the quiz. We're just going to call something like render question. Okay, that doesn't exist yet. That's fine.
Right.
Let me think here, because I'm trying to figure out what the conditional is for showing the summary. We're going to render the question. They're going to click something. They're going to click a choice. They're going to click next or submit. And when they submit, we'll show the feedback. And that'll choose whether or not, that'll figure out whether or not they need to update score or something like that. And then next, we'll send them to the summary. Okay. I'm just thinking out loud here, sorry. Okay, that's fine. And then render will say else, render summary. Okay. So most likely what we're going to have to do here is have a function called main that actually does all of our event listening and whatnot. But main is also going to call render to start with, and then we'll figure out what to do from there. Okay, cool. So now what happens when we hit start? So main is going to call on our start quiz function. That start quiz function is where we're going to say, okay, if we click on the ID of start, so this had an ID of start, so this needs to be start quiz. There we go. So if we click on start quiz, it's a button, so there's no prevent default there. But we will go ahead and set store.started equals true, and then we will call render, right? And what that's going to do is that should then essentially show the first question. Now we're getting a console error here, and it's just saying render question is not defined. Perfect. Okay. So I'm going to keep all my render functions together. Okay. Now what render question is going to do is grab our question. So const question equals store.question square bracket store.current question, like so. I have to think here for a second. Okay. Now that is going to go into quiz h1, set its text to question dot title, and then set, then we're going to loop over our answers. So question dot answers dot for each answer, we're going to go ahead into choices. We're going to, actually, let's first go ahead and clear that out. Set that HTML to empty. And then choices dot append. For each one, I'm going to go ahead and append and input type equals radio, name equals choice, value equals okay, we need not just answer here, but the index as well in our for each. Okay, so the value will be the index, and the ID will also be the index. And that should be fine. And then next to that, we will have a label for the index so that matches it up. And then we will go ahead and put the answer here. That's the string representation, blue, red, orange, or yellow. We'll close off the label, and now we've rendered out our question. Okay, so now we should be able to start, and it should show the next question, but it's actually telling us that we have a unaccounted for curly brace here. So let's see here, question for each answers, close that off, close off our for each, close off our function. Only thing I can think is maybe it doesn't like the curly brackets here, so let's go ahead and open this up to a full page so I can look at the console here and maybe get a better idea. Doesn't seem to matter. It's not giving us any errors. And this button, oh, I think now I got an error. What? Oh, I think that's something completely different. All right, let's go back to the editor view here, because I think that full page might be a little bit behind. So let's see. Okay. Yeah, I know that opens it up in the new view, but So this all looks good. The only thing I can think is maybe it didn't like the backticks, but I'm pretty sure backticks work in CodePen for our template string. Let's see here. I'm just trying to get this to re-render to see if there's any errors in the console. There are not. When I click start, nothing happens. Let's make sure we still have, I do not see jQuery in here. Oh yeah, never mind, it's right there. What's your I? No, there's only one way to find out. No, it has to support that. I can't imagine that CodePen doesn't support this. Let's see if there's any. No, it's just a preprocessor, but you shouldn't need Babel in there. Let's try this. Log. What? Hello, CodePen. What? Oh, that's weird. But it does support that. Huh, interesting. Okay, let's see if console.log started. Yeah, okay, so we get there. It does set started to true. It calls render. Render doesn't look like anything's missing. Console.log start. console.log render question and console render summary. Okay, yeah, I know your start. Render question. Okay, we're getting some. Oh, well, I know why. I just refuse to accept the fact that I made a very simple mistake, which is to, show quiz in the first place. And to hide start. So one of the things render should do is, I believe, should automatically hide. Yeah, perfect. Okay, great. And then it's just using a conditional on what to show next. So it'd be cool if hit that. Cool. All right. So we go to start, blue, submit. Okay, cool. So it doesn't know what to do now from that. Inside of our quiz, we have a form. So we have our render question, we have our start quiz, and I think we need our submit choice will be our next function. So you notice what I'm doing here is creating like a set of functions that are specifically designed for listening to events. And then we have some functions up here that are specifically designed for rendering output.
Right.
Cool. So great. So this function, submit choice, is going to wait for quiz form to submit. And we will go ahead and prevent default on that. And then we got to figure out what our answer is. And from there, we'll show some feedback. We'll render some feedback. So let answer equal, well, this could be a const answer equal input type equals radio. Which one is checked? Not checked, checked. And then get its value. Okay. If, let's go ahead and grab our question. So again, store.questions, store.current question. Okay, and if answer is the same as question.correct, it's not going to be with the triple equals because answer is going to be the value of a radio button, and that value was set with a string. So first we need to cast this to a number. So if the number version of answer is exactly the same as the correct property of the current question, then store.score goes up by 1. Okay. And then we would, I'm thinking here of like a way for render to make the decision to show feedback. So I was thinking about having like a has feedback equals almost like it could be true, false, or null, right? Null means we don't have any feedback at all, or it could be null and then either correct, yeah, else store.has feedback equals incorrect. And then, regardless, we call render again. And the idea is that like render is this main function that's like trying to figure out, okay, no. It's trying to figure out, can make that false, there we go. What to render next, right? So we would have to put another else if in here. Else if has feedback. So essentially, if it's correct or incorrect, it doesn't matter. That'll be a string, which will be true. And the default of has feedback is false, right? So one of the things that I think render question should do, not only should it show the quiz, but it should say store.has feedback is, oh, no, that's going to come later. Never mind, sorry. So this is going to render feedback. All right. Now, by default, this hides start, it hides the quiz. You should also, by default, hide feedback. So just in case it's being shown, render is hiding that and then choosing what to show or render. So now we have a function called render feedback. Now this is going to go take feedback and show it. Our feedback was pretty empty. It just was an H1 and a paragraph. So we should go into feedback, that H1, and set its text to store.hasFeedback, right? Because we set that to be essentially correct or incorrect, right? So has feedback correct, incorrect, right? And then we should make a decision on what that paragraph should be. Is that paragraph going to be, you said X and the correct answer is Y? Or is that paragraph just going to be the correct answer is Y? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I've seen other quizzes where we have things like you said X and the answer was X, you know?
Right.
I think you should only say what they said if they got it wrong.
Right. Yeah. That's one thing I was trying to do, and I wasn't
Yeah.
sure how to structure that.
So I think we should have two paragraphs in here. Class user feedback or user answer. And then a paragraph with the class of correct answer. So correct answer always shows. It's whether or not we show user answer.
Right.
Okay. So essentially we'll say if store.hasFeedback is equal to correct, triple equals. But we actually don't care if it's correct. Incorrect. So if it's incorrect, then we'll go ahead and say that user answer.text is you answered. Okay. And then we have to go to store .questions, store .current question dot answers. Oh god. Is going to be what the user guessed. Let me think about this. From a store standpoint, I think what we could have is guess is 0. And then when they essentially submit their choice, we will say their answer is, and instead of it being, oh, that's fine. We can just say it's only if they get it wrong. Store.guess equals answer. Let's go ahead and set it to the text version so we don't have to do it here. Store.questions, store.current question dot answers square bracket answer. So we can just go in and get their specific answer and set that to guess. So then we're displaying it, we can just say you answered store.guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. Now, regardless, we're always going to go to correct answer and set its text to the correct answer was store dot, oh, sorry, did not do these, that's backticks. Store dot question, square bracket, store dot current question, answer. Oh gosh, okay, yeah. I'm probably gonna need to const question equals store dot questions, square bracket, store dot current question. We'll go ahead and grab that question because we're gonna need to reference a couple things here. So first we're gonna need to go into question.answers, but which answer do we want? We want question.correct. So we can get the text string of the correct answer. Okay, so no matter how they answer, we are going to tell them what the correct answer was. But if they answered incorrect, we'll also remind them what their guess was. So, okay, great. Has feedback is not defined. Store.has feedback. Okay, so in my render, I say if has feedback instead of store.has feedback. Cool. So we start. Okay, has feedback. There we go. So store has feedback is false by default. So it goes down to our, all right, we're not at the end of the questions yet. So we'll go ahead and render the question. We click on an answer and it says incorrect, you answered blue. The correct answer was yellow. Okay, because part of answering or submitting your choice is it sets the fact that we actually have feedback for them, and then it calls render. Now, we need our function for next question. So next question, all that does, this is another event listener, right? This is going to listen for next, whoops, next. Okay, and I thought of another thing, by the way. So when we render feedback, we show the feedback, we set the H1 of text. We should also, by default, set the feedback, set user answer to blank. Because remember, we're saying that if it's incorrect, we tell them what their answer was. So we should probably clear that out, because question to question, what if the next question they get it right, you know? Yeah. We don't want that, like, you answered blue, and it's like, what? No, I didn't. Not on this one, I did. Cool. All right. So next.click, again, it's just a standalone button, so we don't need a prevent default. But what this is going to do is say store.currentQuestion plus plus. We should get in the habit of not modifying store directly, like setting store equal to store.currentQuestion plus one, because plus plus directly modifies. So we're going to use the value that it currently is and add one. Again, this has no bearing on what you're doing currently with jQuery and vanilla JavaScript. But when we get into React, one thing you're going to learn about store or state is that you cannot modify it directly. You'll get in, there's like a built-in method where you would like set state. So we would say like set store to current question to whatever the current version is plus one. I know that might be a little bit too much right now, but that is kind of the goal of all of this, is to get you to start thinking in this mindset.
Right, okay.
Okay, yeah, so of course, then once we do that, what do? We call on render. And what render is going to do in this case is it's going to say, all right, hold on now. I've got current question will now be 1, and that is no longer less than length. So it's going to call on render or call on render summary, right? We should also then, when we go to next, we should also set store.hasFeedback back to false, right? Because we're now moving away from the feedback page, because otherwise render would stop right there. It has feedback and render feedback again, right? But we're past started. Of course, we've started. We don't have feedback anymore, and that was the last question. So now we go to render summary. So let's write that function, render summary, and that is going to come in here to the summary page, and show that, which means that we need to go up to our main render and make sure that is one of the things that we automatically hide whenever we call render. Okay. And that is going to go into summary, set the paragraph to you scored store.score out of store.questions.length. Okay. And then it'll have the restart quiz, and we'll get to that. So we hit start, blue, submit, okay, next. Okay, great. So I put P as its own thing instead of calling on the text method. Okay, start, blue, submit, next. Okay, not sure what the issue is now. I did not call it summary, I called it results. So let's call it summary. I think that makes a little more sense. That's why I call it everywhere else. So start, blue, submit, next, summary. You scored 0 out of 1. Okay. Now we don't have anything for restart quiz. So let's go ahead and set that up. Restart quiz as another event listener. Function restart quiz. Now that is going to essentially just set store. Oh, we have to actually listen for restart. Click E. That's going to set store.has feedback back to false. Oh, no, we don't have to do that. I'm sorry. Store.started. Yes. Started back to false. We have not started the quiz. We have our score is back to 0. And our current question. Geez Louise, I am like making so many spelling errors. Current question is back to 0. And then we just call render. Because again, render has all of that logic. Now render is going to say, oh, you haven't started, so it'll go back to showing us the start. So we start, blue, submit, incorrect, restart. Start, yellow, submit, correct. Next question, 1 out of 1, restart. And then the only other thing that we have is showing like the actual like running score, you know? Mm-hmm. And so I think in a lot of these I had in H1, I think I would want to put that in a header, right? And that header is where I would also put my score. And so this would be, well, paragraph class is information. No, let's do score. So current score is, and then we'll just close that off. And then a class of progress. So that's going to be 0 out of 0. Okay, perfect. Great. So I want to have a function down here called render header. And that is just going to go into my header. And the header is available almost all the time. So inside of header, go to score. It does not have an ID, it is just header. So header score text is going to be score store.score. And then header progress is going to be text store.current question / store.questions.length. Perfect. Okay. Now, when does render header get called? What am I missing here? Quote, quote, backtick, 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 backtick. Well, I missed something somewhere here. Huh. Oh, there we go. Closing curly brace. It's always the little things. Oh, it did say missing curly brace and template expression, but this thing fires off so many errors I have not been paying attention to. Because it's like by the letter as you're typing. Hey, 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 hey. It's like if you had to do a mock interview and like while you're trying to write code, someone just kept yelling, wrong. Not that that's ever happened. Okay.
No, wouldn't that be annoying?
That would be terrible. Okay. So if we think about this, do we show it when it starts? No. Do we show it when we have feedback? Sure. Render score, right? Because maybe our feedback also, or sorry, render header. Maybe our feedback also has we got it correct, so the score went up. Do we show it when we're going to show a question? Of course, because now we're on to a specific number of questions. And then do we show it when we do the summary? No, we do not. So the summary basically tells us everything that the header shows. So by default, the header should hide. Okay, and part of rendering the header, of course, is also showing the header. Okay, so the only problem with that is that it doesn't say welcome on our start, right? So I think our header should just say Pokemon Quiz 2020, and this should have an H2 that says welcome to my Pokemon Quiz. And that's another thing that I noticed as we are working through this is I have all of these as H1s, and that's just semantically not correct. There should only be one H1 on the page, and it's there in the header. And I will go ahead and change these to H2s, this to an H2, feedback, quiz, welcome, and summary. Perfect. Which means all my JavaScript that specifically target an H1 is going to now need to instead target an H2. So we'll modify all of them. Oh, okay, it was just 2 of them. Well, easy enough. So when I start, now it says Pokemon Quiz 2020, the score is 0. I'm on 0 of 1. Okay, so render header needs to not show current question as it is, but add 1 to it since we're using an index. All right, so start, okay, I'm on question 1 of 1. This should probably say something like question 1 of 1. There we go. That's a little better. So start, question 1 of 1, blue, submit, great. We broke everything. So, all right, let's see. Render header, render feedback. So, header is its own thing. Feedback is its own thing. Don't see any errors. We hide header, of course. And then, okay, store has feedback. So let's make sure that we didn't break anything down here. Nope, I don't see any issues. Has feedback is correct or has feedback is incorrect. And score goes up by 1 when we start. Hold on here. Yeah, that makes sense. We start, we select an answer, and then we submit said answer. And that submitting said answer is rendering the header, rendering the header, then rendering the feedback. We know we can do both because we're able to render the header and render the question. I don't see an issue with the header itself. Everything is closed off correctly. I don't see an issue with feedback. I do have feedback now with an H2. Let's make sure. Feedback show, feedback H2. Okay. Let's see if this has access to our current store. Yes, it does. So the current question is 0. The guess is blue. Has feedback is incorrect. Okay. score is 0, and start is true. So we should, if we just look at the logic of our render, we are hiding start, we're hiding quiz, we're hiding feedback, we're hiding summary, we're hiding the header. Is the store not started? No. Does the store have feedback? Yes. So we should render header, then render feedback. What the heck? Okay, well, let's take a look over here, open up DevTools. Nothing like some extra debugging. We start, blue. Oh no, that's from some extension. Okay, let's take a look in here so I can kind of watch this as we go. Header, start, and quiz. Huh. It's as if feedback and summary are no longer there. Did I mess something up with these H2s? I sure did. Look at this. There is now an H1. I think when I was replacing one of these, it like closed off the quiz as an ending H1 instead of an ending section.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wild.
That's what was causing it?
I guess so, yeah. Cool. So start, blue, submit. Okay. Ooh, I've got a new issue. Because, oh, it may just have been delayed, I think, and it was refreshing. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so our score is 0. We're still in question 1 of 1, but that is incorrect. You answered blue. Next. Now header goes away. We get our summary. We restart quiz. Header is still not being shown. We start. We guessed correctly yellow. We submit our answer. We already know our score went up. Correct. Next. Restart quiz. Perfect. So now we have a JavaScript file that's completely different and an approach that's completely different. That's more of a modern type approach where we have this render, this main render function that's always being called on. And this has all of our logic. It's hiding everything on the page and then choosing what to show. There's times when I was building this that I thought this could have probably been a little more elegant. I definitely was just jumping right in and building it from scratch off the top of my head and thinking about how to structure this. So we've got a few more things that we're keeping track of. Before, I think the first iteration of this from a few years ago, we had our questions array, score, and current question as our own variables. Right. Now we put them in store, and in order to kind of achieve this function of one render function that handles all, we added some additional things in, like what is our current guess? Have we started the quiz or not? Do we have feedback or not? Right? And those helped us kind of build this kind of order of conditionals here in the render function. So if we haven't started, then we show start. Otherwise, we're either going to show a question or show the feedback or show the summary. And each of those render functions is responsible specifically just for showing that section and updating the HTML, right? The only other thing that we haven't tested on this is what happens when we have a second question. So let's try that. Okay. Okay, and that one, the correct answer is 0. So let's see if this works and can scale. So here we see our header says we're on question 1 of 2. We'll answer both correct. So yep, our score went up by 1. We hit next. It has moved us on to question 2 of 2. We select that. It tells us our correct, our score went up. And we go to next, and the summary says 2 out of 2, and we restart. Now let's answer both incorrect. We're on question 1. The score is 0. Incorrect, blue, yellow, 0, 1. Next, 0, 2. Red, submit. Incorrect, red, blue, 0, 2 of 2. Next, summary, 0 out of 2. Restart. Perfect.
Nice.
So this is fully scalable. We could just keep adding questions to that array, and our quiz already knows how to handle all of that. Cool.
Yeah, this makes a lot more sense, and you know, as you mentioned, like much more